To my beloved niece. By now you have surely come to find this letter resting upon my desk below a smashed window in my blood-soaked chambers. Assuming the shattering of its glass did not awaken you and draw you here, I hope you slept well and soundly. For, regrettably, you are unlikely to find such peaceful slumber possible hereafter. If you fear suicide, allow me to dispel such suspicions at once. I am alive and unharmed. Yet, I do not suspect you will find any comfort in such knowledge once you've read on. I am entrusting this information to you in the hopes not that you will pursue further truths about what is so hastily scrawled upon this note, but rather that you might be spared the gruesome fate awaiting the others. You were always so kind to me, so thoughtful. There was no one, is no one, I would wish to keep out of this mess more than you. So, for your own safety, I must implore you to set fire to, if not my entire homestead, then at the very least, this letter. Let your eyes wander away from the body of what I've written. Read the final paragraph, and burn the rest, knowing that if I could, I would have given anything to have you left out of all this dreadful business. I am so very sorry. And if it happens that you simply cannot fight off the urge to read all I've penned upon this damnable page, then know that I am more sorry than I could ever hope to express on paper. Yet, and I suppose this is why I am even still scrawling this out even now, you do have a right to know. Something is haunting me. Something I have neither the means nor the knowledge to fight back against, though not for lack of trying. It will take me soon, if it can. And it is for that reason that I have fled. Please do not think less of me for my haste. I wished only to spare you the pain of goodbye, and the questions such a parting would surely leave writhing within your mind. My only regret is that I will not be able to tell you all this myself. To say goodbye, wish you well, and thank you in person for the years you have dedicated to me and this rancid old estate. The fact remains, however, that despite your sincerity towards me these past 11 years, I have been anything but truthful in return. When I asked you to stay with me here, an entire ocean away from your home and family, to care for me as my own health failed, every word was a lie. Despite my best attempts, I am certain you have seen through my charade by now. I am not nearly as weak as I've been pretending. My bones not nearly as frail, and my mind not nearly as feeble. In truth, I may be in better health now in my twilight years than I ever was in my youth. And I owe much of it to my fathomless fear of this monstrosity that, even as I scribble out these final paragraphs, is likely bearing down upon my chamber door. I was little older than you are now when it started. Yet I had assumed myself free of its unholy presence when I returned to London. We had lost half our team on the expedition, and the others who sailed home with me would die one by one over the 39 years that followed. The day I departed for America was the very same day that it came for our captain. leaving only half a dozen men, including myself, as the last survivors of our miserable campaign into the jungles. It was only 2 years later that news of further deaths began reaching me. Wives, children, brothers and sisters, all with such familiar names, all within the great city we'd once called home. The families of every last crew member of our expedition were being targeted by some unknown assailant. I could only assume they would be coming for my brother and his family next, but it would have been impossible to convince your father to leave London. So I promised him the inheritance of my blood-stained fortune in exchange for sending you here to act as my ward, caring for me in my old age, far from the city that I prayed the curse had been isolated to. In time, I thought that perhaps your letters could convince him to join us. Clearly, the naivety of my youth had come back to haunt me through such hopes. I had assumed we would be safe here, with the great Atlantic as a barrier. But once again, it seems I have accomplished nothing by running but to further delay the inevitable. Yet it would seem fleeing has become my only means of defense once more. Despite the ocean I left between us, this blight seems to have finally caught up with me. It is not my wish to die as the others have, left twisted and mangled with a scream of utmost repulsion frozen on my perfectly preserved face. Nor do I wish for you to suffer a similar fate. From what I have gathered of the events preceding the deaths of my colleagues, you will have only a few years once I have passed from this world before it begins pursuing you. This is merely an estimate, mind you. Your spot in line may change as the creature discovers new victims, but that is not a variable you can count on working out in your favor. And while I have no intention of allowing this monster to catch me, my years are coming to a close. Whether by this abominable curse or natural causes, my departure from this life is still close at hand. Whatever awaits me beyond is surely a horror beyond description. As such, I am by no means eager to rush forward towards oblivion. I shall hold out for as long as I can, but you must be prepared for things to progress sooner than I have estimated, should the worst come to pass. I urge you to forget about your father and his greed. It will come for him first, in all likelihood. And despite my warnings, he remains in England with every intention of waiting for my death to bring him his wealth. I've told him nothing of what is about to transpire here the moment I finish this letter, nor of what will actually become of my fortune once I vanish into this blood-streaked night. That is a secret I felt best kept to myself until the time was right. And again, I must apologize for leaving you entirely in the dark up to this point. Yet I fear that the dark truly is the safest place for you. The creature, or creatures as it may be, would not haunt you if you had no association with one of us who committed such atrocities during our time abroad. We were young, well off, highly educated, and wholly convinced that such things entitled us to a certain degree of leniency when it came to tabooed practices and morally detestable ventures. So long, of course, that it was all in the seeking of greater knowledge. For what gain can there be without a certain degree of loss? What progress has ever come without a modicum of sacrifice? What could one ever hope to learn if he was unwilling to tread headlong into the dark and unknown? That was our way of thinking back then, at least. Our way of justifying the nightmarish activities and unimaginable horrors we sowed during our time away from civilization. Truly, we paid our fare into hell during those formative years. And now the ferryman has come to make good on our investment, in all his blood-curdling glory. We did such unspeakable things in the hunt for knowledge that was never meant for us to begin with. All of it predicated on nonsensical rantings we deciphered off some detestable scrap of parchment back in the comfort of our university. We were so easily influenced back then. Sitting together, fortified and secure, in the safety of our secretive studies and decadent libraries, far removed from the sickening realities of what it was we were plotting. So easily influenced. So easily manipulated. Yet not one of us went unwillingly to our damnation. We sailed far from the civilized world, off to some place where our experiments and rituals might go unnoticed by the more discerning eye who might have riddled out what it was we were up to. And when the horrors we awoke finally grew restless of our games, and turned their slavering eyes, gluttonous tendrils, and pulsating maws upon us, we did not hesitate to turn tail and flee back home, as though what we'd done could be so easily put behind us. We were like children who, in our infinitely infantile wisdom, had seen fit to disturb a hive of hornets, only to run crying into our houses to seek shelter from the stings that we so rightly deserved, playing the victim and claiming the insects had attacked us, as though the rocks we'd agitated their nest with had never existed. Not a soul back in England batted an eye at our absence, or our eventual return. In the eyes of the law and society, we'd gotten away with it all. Yet those of us who returned from our venture came back with one eye constantly gazing over our shoulders. We came back changed. We came back marked. For lack of better terminology, we came back cursed. I shudder to think what awaits me when this is all over. Yet I will not deny for a moment that I deserve every last bit of it. You'll have to excuse me my rambling, sweet girl. This has weighed so very heavy upon my mind for so very long. And long-windedness is perhaps the one sin I have left that is still forgivable. As I said, what haunts me would not harm you, were you not associated in some way with one of we who breached the veil. Unfortunately, our shared blood forged that association long before you ever had a say in the matter. I ask that you burn this letter simply because, by reading it, anyone may inadvertently establish such a connection as well, making themselves a target for the beasts. Though, should you choose to ignore my warnings, perhaps it would be best to show this missive to as many wandering eyes as possible instead. It may in fact provide you with more time to organize your affairs, while the creatures hunt down those unfortunate souls who might happen across it in passing. It is not a fate I would wish upon any. Yet, if it might save your life, my dear, even for a short while, I would gladly give over 100,000 such misguided strangers to these monstrosities. Of that which hunts us, I have glimpsed it on several occasions, stalking these very halls as it plots our demise. Though again, I must emphasize that you were never in any danger at the time. It will not come for you until it is finished with me. Your natural causes have severed my thread. It's the light that reveals it, gives it shape, gives it power, gives it a way to reach us. Every fireplace, every lamp, every candle, and every spark is another doorway for it to step from, to crawl out of on its many loathsome, slithering legs. Its eyes, always staring unblinkingly from the center of the flames, see far, and will never stop searching for the right opportunity to make its move. Even as I scribble out these final words with my lamp so dim, so far out of reach, I can still feel its gaze resting heavy upon me from the glare that conceals it. Any source of illumination becomes an open window for it to see and sneak through. You will remember that I have, of late, secluded myself within the manor at all times. It is because earlier this summer, while we ate out on the back landing, I had the poor fortune of gazing skyward at an inopportune moment. I beheld within the unfathomable depths of the sun's very radiance one of the beast's sickening, bubbling eyes peering down upon us. It vanished in a blink, as did any desire left within me to sit beneath the glow of that grand blazing disk or its nocturnal sibling ever again. It is the darkness that these demons fear, and only in the dark will we be safe from them. No, even that is not the essence of it. They may not fear the dark, but without light to reveal their true forms to us, they have no power. No way to reach us. No way to drag us kicking and screaming toward whatever grisly fate they intend for us. On only one occasion have I actually caught the beast hunting. On my way to my chambers just 3 nights ago, it came for me. Its movements have always been hushed, silent. Yet for the first time I heard it approaching. Slick, serpentine claws sliding and scraping along the wood as it closed in on me from behind, dragging the sickening, malformed mass of its body along these very floorboards. I fear now that I only heard it because it wanted me to. It wanted me to know it was there. Wanted me to turn to face it. Wanted to see the fear grow in my eyes as its maws gaped and its great gangly arms reached out for me. That night, it managed to grab hold of my wrist with one of many such appendages, as I recoiled in disgust and unabated terror. Its touch was like no sensation I've ever felt in this life, nor would I ever wish to. Cold, yet burning. Undulating, but dead. Every inch of its flesh wriggling as though tens of thousands of maggots were crawling just beneath the thin membranes of its long-fingered tentacles. I could hear the vibrations echoing in my skull from the moment it laid its loathsome grasp upon me, thrumming and reverberating in a rhythm my mind seemed unwilling to comprehend. A shapeless hymn that threatened to unhinge my bowels, loosen my teeth, and sent my thoughts spinning down and down into the void. Yet, as I tripped over my own feet in my desperate flailing, I found myself falling not through some maddening abyss, but through the open doorway of the unlit hall pantry behind me. And as the shadows swallowed me up, the creature's bony tentacle seemed to slip. That thorny tendril passed straight through my arm, unable to touch me while I was bathed in the blessed darkness of that tenebrous chamber. The beast fled back into a candlelit guest room down the hall without a sound. I have not seen it since, nor do I dare go looking for it. It is not here to kill me outright, though that is certainly part of its goal. No. It has not glided across oceans and hunted so quiet and deliberate just to end my life while my back is turned. It wishes to see me suffer. It is here to punish me. Punish me for my transgressions against my fellow man and the cosmos alike. Yet as surely as I deserve such retribution brought against me for my actions, no part of my being, save perhaps what remains of my scarred and battered conscience, has resigned itself to such a fate. So I shall flee tonight, the moment I douse this cursed light from my chamber, and never shall you see or hear from me again. I leave you this information so that you might protect yourself. The darkness is your safeguard. Always remember that. So long as you cannot see the horror that is hunting these halls even as I pen this final missive, it cannot truly harm you. Were I a braver man, I might simply chance blinding myself in the hopes that my lack of sight might keep me safe from the creature's wrath. In theory, such an act would render one immune to the beast's assault, for it is the mind that these creatures harry, not the body. And if your mind cannot perceive their form, they hold no power over you. Alas, my days of such acts of bravado are long behind me. It is not too late for you, my dear. I am leaving you a sizable fortune. With it, I urge you to make ready a way to save yourself. Hire anyone you might need to assist you, and then strike the eyes from your skull. Rip away your sight and rob these monsters of their chance to claim you. If, like myself, however, you find your hands stayed by fear, build for yourself a place of safety you may retreat to for the rest of your days. A shadowy hovel or a blackened mansion. Build it, adapt to it, and lock yourself away within it. In either case, those around you will call you mad. Accept this, but do not let such claims sink in. Never let their whispers and hushed accusations make you question your own sanity, lest these creatures will have won even without claiming you. They'll have driven you from your own rational mind into the harrowing expanses of madness, and we cannot permit them such a victory. You will survive this ordeal. Of that I have no doubt. Resign yourself to the dark, my dear. For only in its dreadful embrace will you ever hope to find peace now. On my bed you will find a goodly volume of my blood. I have been siphoning it for some time in preparation for this moment. I will have dashed some upon the lawn leading into the forest behind the manor as well. Show the investigators, and they will surely conclude that, given such blood loss, a man of my age could not possibly have survived whatever their imaginations determined transpired here. You shall be named owner of the house and estate. In my desk, you will find my will, fully notarized and revised as of 2 years ago, leaving you all of my worldly possessions. Do with them what you will, but I beg of you not to come looking for me. No one must ever find me, lest they let in the light. Goodbye, my dear.